Good morning to Scotland, good morning to Europe. Wherever you are, please welcome to the 6th International Academic Forum brought to you by ARIISW, the Asian Research Institute for International Social Work at Shukutoku University, Japan. My name is Joseph Gohori, the Chief Researcher at ARIISW Shukutoku, and I will be serving as your moderator today. Today we'll focus on international social work and globalization. Our topic is what is the international social work with the globalized states or local social work. And you'll be hearing an introduction from Dr. Tatsuru Akimoto, a comment from Dr. Takahiro Asano, and a keynote lecture from Dr. Lena Dominelli. Let's get started. Please welcome Dr. Tatsuru Akimoto, a honorary director of ARIISW Shukutoku, former president of APASW, and one of leading scholars in the field of international social work. Dr. Akimoto will summarize the aims of this forum, sort out the agenda, and provide us with a brief introduction on our today's topic. So, Professor Akimoto, the virtual floor is yours. So please start with your introduction, with your presentation. Akimoto sensei, よろしくお願いします。
Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, good midnight. I'm very much delighted to see you today, although it's through internet. I'm very delighted to see you all from all continents on this earth, except for Antarctic continent. We do not have any penguins. We do not have any seals. But I welcome all of you. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you very much, Dr. Professor Lena Dominelli. Thank you very much for your acceptance of ARIISW's request to deliver a special lecture today for us. We feel honored very much. Thank you very much, Professor Asano, for your special contribution to this special event. I have also feel honored to have the chance to introduce you to all colleagues from all over the world. First, we put two assumptions. First one is how to, understand a kind of positional relationship between social work, local social work, and the international social work. I use the term of local social work or state social work or domestic social work or sometimes national social work, but it doesn't make any difference in this event. But usually probably I'll use the term of local or state. But local could mean not only countryside, but much more smaller size region. But today, to make the story or discussion simpler, just understand that the word local as a state or the domestic, one country social work. And this chart, this figure is our assumption. Today, we just assume that we have the local social work and international social work within whole social work. But of course, this is assumption. Each people or each of you may have different understanding and the usage of the term. For example, some people may think local social work and intersocial work is something else, something outside. Maybe international professional organizations like IA or IF, or some social work by or in maybe social work developed countries, or just social work outside your own countries. But some other people may think that international social work is a part of this domestic social work. Each country has a kind of international adoption, for example, foreign workers or migrants, etc., etc., etc. So some people or many people think international social work as some social work which are related to outside countries for their own practices. Some other people may think, oh, both international social work could mean could have different meanings, and just use the term of international social work for both ways. Of course, there are many other interpretation of the usage, but today just we assume our international social work as in this chart. More exact, to make it a little bit more complicated, or the exactly, or more accurately. Maybe actually there are on this earth, there are many, 200 or more local social work, and the international social work is a little different from those national borders. This is one usage, but today, just we assume it as it is. Assumption 2, we assume that international social work in the world has reached at a certain final level, the what you call final products. Just I'll show two definitions. One is, for example, international professional action and the capacity for international action by social work profession and its members. International action has 4 dimensions, and 1, 2, 3, 4. The internationally related domestic practice and the advocacy, professional exchange, international practice, international policy development, and advocacy. This is one typical definition whose nickname is functional definition. This has been shown by Lin Healy. There is another one. International social work includes any social work activity anywhere in the world directed towards global social justice and human rights, in which local practice is dialectically linked to the global context. This is given by Hogg. The nickname should be value-based or value-driven definition. There are, of course, many other definitions, but today, just we assume international social work today has reached at this level. today's goal is not to discuss the definition. They are assumption. So we assume they are based on those definitions, we understand international social work as such. And today, we do not discuss those definitions. For example, these two definitions. Of course, we are not satisfied with those definitions. For example, they are too much Western biased, or there is a monopolization by professional social workers, or for example, the value is very important, but value is not necessarily always equal as human rights and social justice. So there are many points we have to discuss, but today we do not discuss such kind of important matters. Today's topic is globalization, because since 1990s mainly, while we have been discussing the definition of international social work, many people, particularly the maybe mainstream social work people, have discussed the globalization in these 2 or 3 decades. Behind definition discussion or in parallel with those discussions. So today's focus is globalization. But we won't discuss globalization in general. We won't discuss globalization and the social work, globalization and the local social work. Today, we would like to discuss specifically the destiny of international social work and the globalization. Where will it go? That's today's focus for us. Everything in the society has been globalized. Of course, social work cannot be an exception. Local social work cannot either. When we talk about the globalization in social work, globalization of social work has 3 layers. One, realities or social problems or social work needs. These realities have been globalized. Second, some standards, norms, or yardsticks have been also globalized. And the practices have been also globalized. These have been discussed a lot already. Social work and local social work are now put in the global context, and the global elements penetrate into every corner of social work and every corner of local social work. Then, naturally, few questions come up. Just we mentioned 4 in our posters. But this question, the focus is logical and conceptual interest, concern, not to the substantial, actual matter. Logically, we have been, conceptually, we have been very much curious. Question number one is the local practice in the global context or the globalized local practice still local social work? Or is it international social work? Two, will local social work absorb and swallow the international social work? Then international social work disappear? Three, if not absorbed, not disappear, what will its international social work's roles and functions be? And what will it look like in the future, near future? The last one is, what will the relationship of international social work with globalized social work and globalized local social work? We raised those questions to get some answers from all of you today. And those our questions seem to be stupid or useless. So I don't know what kind of impression you have had, but there are some or many maybe discussions have been already done in international field. In literatures, we can find several or many good writings. And just I picked up three categories. One category of literatures are related to the relationship between globalization and the local social work. Some papers or books have been discussing on the disappearance of international social work. Some people just continue discussing the international social work will continue existing. And I just mentioned, I show you some examples, only one or two for each categories. First one is related to relationship between globalization and the local social work. There are rather many papers and the references. One example is shared social examples and movement of people across borders challenge, is not necessary, challenge the very notion of a domestic social work practice. Or local practice is dialectically linked to the global context, or local practices should be viewed through an international lens, or knowledge about international events and the different cultures should inform local practices. Second category of the discussion is international social work may disappear. Lynn Healy of the United States once wrote, she said, it's a vision or, no, she said fantasy. This is her fantasy, a vision or fantasy. International social work would have disappeared by 2020, 2 years ago. She wrote many years ago. International social work will have disappeared by 2020. It will have melted into each subfield of social work by the year. She wrote this. or talked about this on in our conversation in our forum on curriculum of international social work. All is global, and it is counterproductive to divide what is local and what is international. A holistic perspective will have replaced the segregated approach to international content in the international curriculum. She has not insisted, declared that international social work will vanish, but as a fantasy, she wrote it. Another group of discussion is this one. International social work will continue existing. While not all social workers will choose to engage in international social work as a specialist activity, the internationalization of social problems will require increasing numbers of social professionals to have knowledge about international conditions and current affairs in order to understand the concerns of service users and respond appropriately. Which means they suppose international social work will continue existing. And today we have Professor Lena Dominelli. She has been cited in a book as follows. There are also those within the North who question the appropriateness of the term international social work and argue for more work to develop a theory and practice that examine processes and the diverse ways in which the global and the local interact. For example, Dominelli. I don't know if Dominelli, Professor Dominelli, I don't know how you respond to this citation, but we found it. And so some people anyway think that has questioned the appropriateness of the term international social work. And in the same book also cited the Lavarate and Chemists. They have been insisting that maybe the notion of social work internationalism would be more useful than international social work. And the last, Webb, a little bit old, 2003, about 20 years ago though, Webb reject the validity of an international or global social work. Social work is inherently local and it requires deep understanding of local culture. Therefore, social work has no clear identified or legitimate mandate in relation to globalization. And the global social work is a practically impossibility. And no more than a vanity for the profession. How charming it is. We have been looking forward, listening to the voices, opinions today from all of you. Thank you very much.
Dr. Akimoto, thank you very much for your excellent presentation, and thank you very much for kickoff, for starting our webinar.